started actually talking about life in Jamaica, like before you moved here. These were some difficult times, certainly in Jamaica at the time you were growing up, weren't they? So what sort of influence and impact did the entire situation in Jamaica, what was happening there with not as stable as it was politically, what sort of impact did that have on you as a young man? Well,
to be honest with you, I didn't understand it very well, number one. Luckily, we were not in an area where any of the violence or any of the things were happening at that time. But just from listening to the news and my parents discussing it at the table, I understood that there were some serious issues going on in Jamaica. And so I realized that what they were doing for me to take us to the United States was very important, as difficult as it was going to be.
Were there times when you hated them for it?
I would say that I hated the idea of being here, but again, I think I had at least enough presence of mind to understand that it was done for a reason. And in hearing from friends at school the things that have happened to other families, I realized that there was some serious danger. Not that I didn't miss Jamaica and that I was very upset many times being here because of the weather and because of not having the friends and not identifying with a lot of the people here. But I understood that it had to have happened for a reason.
So it was difficult, was it, settling in once you moved to the U.S.?
Oh yeah, we had a very nice home. It was all of us living in a house. We had a huge yard to play in, run around in. That's why we had all of these fruit trees in the yard. My grandmother and grandfather lived right next door. They also had a huge yard. So basically, we had two homes basically to roam free outside. And as I said, my brother and I were real outdoorsmen. So coming here and actually moving to an apartment, and at that time a one-bedroom apartment where my sister was living at the time, made it very, very difficult for us because number one, we're not used to apartment buildings. We weren't used to the cold weather. We weren't used to not being able to eat all the things that we wanted to eat. And we had this pent-up energy inside of us that an apartment couldn't fulfill. You know, it couldn't do anything for us there. So yeah, that was very difficult.
And school?
Oh, school was a whole other thing. We, within the first year, I probably had more fights in the first year than I had for the entire time that I was going to school in Jamaica. Because I think also, apart from, I'm sure now looking back, all the psychological issues I must have had going on in my head with this major transition, didn't identify with any of the people there. They would call us, well, now I realize Caribbean people in general, that we lived in tree houses and all of this stuff, not understanding what was going on. I was in a neighborhood where it was a very mixed group of people. It was Italians, Albanians, Spanish, and maybe I would say one other West Indian that I know of that was in the school at that time. So it was very, very difficult when you don't see or identify with anyone that you're used to. So yeah.
So but you made it.
Made it through. I still have both minds. I kept all my teeth. You know, lucky enough, whenever I got punched, it was on the side or in the top, but not directly in front. So I kept all my teeth, kept all my bones, didn't break anything. Okay. Yes. So yeah, we lucked out. I lucked out with that, but it was a very, very difficult transition with school.
And then you, as we said earlier, did this radiology technical work, and said, look, that's not for me. It really isn't for me. I want to get into what I like.
Exactly. Because I was doing that I was doing quite a bit of cooking on the side also. And so it's not that I wasn't dabbling in the business a little bit here and there.
Helped you go to school, did it?
It certainly did. Actually, I created, yet again, if we're going to talk about illegal, I created a little jerk shack on the street, and we're kind of doing a little illegal thing out on the street, cooking chicken and with music and all that kind of thing, which was kind of unheard of in New York at that time.
You wanted to recreate the Jamaican
Exactly. It wasn't even about doing anything. It was really just about having a good time, grabbing a few of your friends and just everybody who understands that sort of thing from Jamaica, and for us to just have a place that we could just all get together and have a good time. It was not about necessarily the money or anything else. Somehow the money just came because I never knew this thing would break out to be as big as it was.
And people came.
Exactly. I mean, it was wild. I mean, it started out with like 10 or 15 people. It ended with over 2,000. It was amazing what was going on in the street. That, to me, proved just how many people felt the same way that I did and missing this whole vibe of being in Jamaica. Yeah.
And didn't do it.
And didn't do it, exactly. Yeah. Everybody said that, you know, it was such a good thing, and they thought about doing it, wish they did all of these things, but nobody did it. And I think actually that's probably one of the most important things I've learned about business is stop talking about it, just do it.
So deep down somewhere in there was an entrepreneur.
I think that's where it started. I honestly believe that's where it began, because it was at that point that I realized how big something can grow to become from such small means.
And you went to the Culinary Institute of America.
Yes, I did.
At what point did you decide that's where I want to go?
With that, you know, with the whole Jerk Shack thing and all of that stuff, I got such great feedback from the stuff that I was doing there that I realized that if I really wanted to get into this business, I think I should kind of approach it professionally. So I decided that I would enroll to the school, even though it was a very difficult process to get in. So I visited the school, they took me on a tour, I saw everything, and I was so very impressed with it. I did everything that I could to make sure that I got enrolled in there, and I actually did it within 6 months.
And did extremely well as well.
I did very well, yes.
and coming out of that, I'm told, was your internship with the Food Network.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
As part of the program at the school, you have to do a 6-month externship somewhere, restaurant, something to do with food, and most kids chose the restaurant business. I decided that I wanted to do the Food Network. You may not believe this, but because I had a kind of a little food business going on the weekend, and most restaurants require that you work on the weekend. The Food Network was the only place that you didn't have to work on the weekends. And so it was very important for me that I have an internship.
That's the only reason you did it?
That's one of the many reasons, one of the key reasons. Yeah. But also I realized that there were so many different chefs that were up and coming that were passing through the Food Network that I knew that once I got my foot in the door, I was going to find a way to be able to talk to them and hear what they did to make it the way that they did in the business.
So it was a good experience there for you?
It was an amazing experience. I worked side by side with some of the top chefs that are out there now, Bobby Flay, Emeril Lagasse, Mario Batali, just to name a few of them. I mean, it was an amazing...
Go back to Bobby Flay a little later on during this interview and talk about your little tete-a-tete with Bobby Flay. We've got to talk about it.
Of course, yeah.
But certainly you're saying you did learn a lot from these people.
Oh, yes.
How much did the rubbing shoulders with them influence your decisions to go into this and what you did and how you did it?
Well, I'll tell you, while in school and talking with the other kids who were in school and going through the program, they all spoke about these chefs as if they were untouchable, as if they were unreal, kind of just like any other celebrity there is. In rubbing shoulders with these guys, I realized they were just as real as I was. They were very down to earth. I heard stories of the difficulties that they went through. I heard of them doing some of the same kinds of things that I did with the Jerk Shack on the street. Some of them had little food stalls before then. And I realized that these guys were just like me, and I don't see any reason why if they did it, I wouldn't be able to do it too. So I think with that, I had a real perspective on what these guys were all about. And I decided that I was going to make it in this business based on that kind of just rapport that I ended up with these guys. And you know, they all really supported me a lot. They were very, very down to earth and helped me a lot and gave me a lot of information.
They must have loved you over there at the Food Network.
Oh yeah, they had a great time with me because at that time, the Caribbean influence wasn't that strong. And so I brought this presence of this whole Caribbean side of things to the Food Network. As a matter of fact, almost any chef that was doing anything Caribbean or needed a Caribbean ingredient always came to me. So I was kind of like the source for a lot of that kind of stuff. So there were many a time that I would be on my way to work and I would get a phone call saying, please, can you go back to wherever it is that you'd be able to find this stuff and bring it in for us, because we have no idea where to find it, because we ask our sources and they have no clue. And so I'd be one of the people who would be bringing all these weird ingredients for some of the shows.
They asked you to stay.
They sure did. I stayed on for a while. So when I was done with school, I came back, excuse me, and I interned with them. Well, not interned. At that time, I freelanced with them for a while. And we, again, just started blowing up with a whole bunch of other things, so many other shows. I learned so much with different ingredients that I'd never seen before. And with all of that, I used that and kind of applied it in the cooking that I do here at Red.